Parents of Reddit, what did your child's school do that made you say, "You can't be serious"? Not me, but a coworker was talking about this today. Her daughter and her schoolmates are being assigned work to do during lunch breaks. They are doing the Zoom call classrooms. She said her daughter is skipping lunch sometimes because she's working on the assignment. The girl is 9. Our elementary school, same one my wife and I went to, has a nice hill next to the playground that leads down to the outfield of a little league field. Kids for decades have been rolling down that hill during recess. Not allowed to do that anymore. Not allowed to run, excessively, during recess anymore either. I wish I was making any of this up. Sadly it's true. My mum was furious with my infant and junior school because 2 of the teachers would not let me write with my left hand, they forced me to write with my right hand, which was impossible. Not as a parent, but my high school eliminated academic awards, because it was somehow unfair on the kids who did not get one. They kept athletic awards, of course. Please limit the pieces of fruit in the lunchbox to 1 item. We are trying to reduce sugar intake for our young people. They forgot my 5-year-old daughter on the bus the second day of kindergarten. The daycare called, that's where the school bus dropped her off so I could pick her and her sister up together after work, to ask if she was sick because she never got off the bus. I freaked and said no, called the school, they said they didn't know where she was. They called me back 15 minutes later saying she had fallen asleep on the bus and didn't get off at her stop. The bus had gone back to the depot and parked. It was August. In Georgia. Edited to add, she no longer goes to that school. Edited again to add, I was 37 weeks pregnant at the time, so how this didn't send me into preterm labor I will never know. Luckily everyone ended up okay, but we promptly took her out of that school. If my mom were alive, this is what would have made her say, "You can't be serious." In 7th grade, 1982-3, I wore a feather alligator clip in my hair to school. I had bought it from the Midway swap meet the weekend prior and I thought it looked so beautiful in my long hair. School office lady saw me walking by and ushered me in. She made me remove my clip and told me I couldn't have drug paraphernalia. I did not know what the fuck she was even talking about. Then she held it up to her nose and sniffed it. She says, "You know, this is a roach clip, it's used to smoke marijuana joints." I said, "No, I did not know that, I'm surprised you do." She kept my clip. Bitch. For Father's Day the kindergarten had donuts and tea with the dads if they came in, most of them did. The kids that didn't have dads or dads that did not show up, were told they had to act as waiters and take the orders of the kids and dads who showed up. Not a parent, but a former student myself. Once I was caught swapping classrooms with a friend of mine. School thought we were kind of skipping class. They decided the punishment for that was to suspend me from class for a day. So they called my parents to tell them that I got caught skipping class and that I would be suspended for that, to what my mom replied, "So you're giving him exactly what he wants." They turned back on the suspension after that lol. My little sister was in elementary school, I was the one that picked her up that day. Apparently you can get detention for jumping into a puddle during recess. My first-year teacher told me of for writing in cursive before the school had taught us how. My grandmother went ballistic when she found out. The same teacher gave me shit because she thought I was spelling my name incorrectly. There's about 3 or 4 different ways of spelling my name, and she could have easily checked the register which would have had my name on it. Again, my grandmother went ballistic. Not a parent, but back when I was in 5th grade and getting death threats on the daily for no reason, my mom was justifiably upset. She talked to my teacher, who said she wasn't going to do anything. My mom proceeded to talk to the principal of the school, who told her it would be too much paperwork to do anything. That was 7 years ago, and I still remember how dumbfounded and angry she was. I was in 3rd grade, and my homework was an anatomy crossword puzzle. I was unable to successfully finish this homework because, well, I was 7 to 8 years old. The teachers notified my mom that I may have a learning disability because the other students were able to finish it. My mom laughed and said, "You really think their parents didn't just do this ridiculous assignment for them?" I'm now 30 and still can't complete a crossword puzzle. Edit. To clarify, no, I did not have a learning disability. In high school we were required to do a home economics class for 1 term. Basically a cooking class divided into 1 small test and 1 large practical that was cooking a 3-course meal. When it came to doing the practical, we were divided randomly into groups of 5. On the day of the practical, a member of my group left all the aprons behind, so the entire group was disqualified. I failed the class for that term and my year mark took a giant knock because somebody else didn't do their work. During the few months of online learning in the spring, my sports teacher required us to take video evidence of us doing the stuff. They never told us how long it was supposed to be, and when my parents heard that, they said, "You can't be serious that the teacher requires you to upload a 1H video for them and use all the network in the house for the whole day." We had 3 people needing internet for online school work. I went to a pretty strict Christian Baptist school my whole life. It was fine when I was little, even though I was shamed for celebrating Halloween, and made fun of 'cause my mom and dad smoked. But when I got older I started to rebel. Lol. Anyway, my friends and I were writing Harry Potter fanfic and it was a little spicy. We got caught and my dad actually met with the principal and was like, "Why am I here? They are 16. I got a Saturday detention for writing fanfic. Not a parent, but back when I was in the 9th grade, 2007 I think, we had a careers class. For our big assignment, all the guys were to create a 5-year career plan, and all the girls were to plan a wedding. My mom called the school to complain, so they changed it so either gender could do either assignment. When my son was about to start 6th grade, the school insisted on putting him in a life skills class, which is where they put all the severely disabled students to teach them skills that they can use later on when getting a job, etc. My son is disabled, he is on the spectrum as well as having ADHD and some other things, but not that disabled. Me, he doesn't need to be in that class. He's too smart for that. School. But we know better. Me, but did you not read the report from his latest ARD meeting and his IEP? School. Yes, and we disagree with that. Me, fine. He's in there for 1 semester. 2nd semester comes around and he's not in that class, it was 1 period a day for him. School. Yeah, he totally doesn't belong in that class. We're sorry. Me, I told y'all so. Morons. When I was in 7th grade, our final assignment in chemistry class was to invent 5 elements. I knew what elements were, so I just couldn't wrap my head around it. By the time I realized that it was shit like invisibilium, makes you invisible, it was too late to do it. It was basically an art creative writing assignment. And it was worth half our grade, so I flunked RHE class. My mom was so pissed. She fought like hell, but the school refused to budge. Got caught skipping school. The punishment. 2-week suspension. Makes sense. My kid is 3 and goes to daycare. I went in to pick him up and the teacher tells me there was an incident and I needed to fill in a form. This is typical for scrapes and bumps, so I start reading the document. There was something about a fence and throwing and I'm having trouble making sense of it and ask the teacher for more info. It turns out a group of kids were trying to throw stuff over the fence. She then sees my perplexed look and adds, "I wouldn't be too worried about it. The kids should have been better supervised, and I'm just impressed he cleared the 7-female fence." A kid was constantly picking on my stepson, pushing him around, that sort of thing. One day he came up to my kid and shoved him to the ground. Son stood up and punched the kid in the face and gave him a bloody nose. The school wanted to give my kid 1-week detention and the other kid 1-day detention, because you shouldn't meet violence with violence. We yelled at the head teacher asking how the fuck that was fair, that the one time my kid stood up for himself, he got punished worse than a serial asshole bully. We told her that for every day she gave our kid detention we would throw him a celebration party when he got home and reinforce that what he did was right. In the end their punishments got flipped and he never bothered my kid again. Happened while I was a student, but I had severe seasonal allergies when I was younger, still have the allergies, but they aren't as bad, and carried an EpiPen. Well, the school's zero-tolerance drug policy meant I couldn't carry it on my person. It had to stay in the nurse's office and if I needed it I could go get it. You can probably already guess what's wrong with that logic. I told them if I ever actually needed it, I wouldn't be in any state to make it to the nurse in time for her to find the damn thing and use it on me. They told me if I kept being disrespectful, I'd get written up and possibly suspended. Bullshit. I found out later that they even keep inhalers for kids with asthma with the nurse too. Not a parent, but I'm 16 years older than my youngest sibling. He goes to school in SC. And you know what his backwards ass school did? They took away spelling words tests. I'm so pissed. They literally said, all these kids have smartphones with auto-correct. We don't need spelling words. I was so, and still am, pissed. OK sign upside down face. They tried to ruin the word fun by using the term, fun assignment book. Gave my son detention for protecting another child that was being kicked in the head and chest by another student, even though the one being kicked had cystic fibrosis. It still makes me angry. I'm not a parent but have a story from when I was a student. We had a teacher who had tenure and got away with a lot of things that were borderline and eyebrow-raising. It came to a head when he started calling students little cunts when they were acting up. The school said they wouldn't be taking any action because the teacher was expressing a personal opinion, and it didn't impact the education experience. A lot of parents said, "Excuse me, what the fuck, are you serious?" Not a parent, but I was the student. In celebration of Black History Month, my school served fried chicken, cornbread, watermelon, and grape soda for lunch. This was not a whitewashed school. We were very diverse. About a quarter of the students and teachers were black, including the vice principal. This was also not in the 60s, this was 2013. In the statewide standardized tests, the schools and pupils are ranked by improvement percentile, so my daughter came home with a disappointing ranking, dead middle at 50% in large font. My daughter always boasts how easy her classworks were, so I asked her to explain. Her reply was, "Dad, I can't improve at 99% percentile." Buried in the smallest fine prints, she scored highest percentile 2 years in a row. Chapstick was considered OTC drugs and the kids could not carry it. My sons would have raw lips in the winter and would have to see the nurse at recess to get Vaseline on Q-tip for relief. Finally, when they were in older grades, I taught them to hide it in their pencil bag and get a little on their finger when the teacher was not looking. They taught addition of fractions wrong. You know, with multiplication of fractions you multiply the numerators together to get the new numerator and do the same for the denominator. Well, they taught that addition was the same except you add the numerators. The teacher couldn't understand why I was so annoyed and said it's just to get them familiar with numbers. Nonsense. For snack, we sent an OD bar thing with my 5 years old. No nuts, but label says made in a factory that uses nuts. It was confiscated and an email sent round everyone saying no nuts or items made in an environment with nuts as they have an extremely allergic child. My position was no problem at all, but if that was the case you should have bloody well told us before. Not a parent, but I still have a story. Back in the days when the gifted students would be pulled out for their own lessons, I was pulled out during my first grade class. On this day we had a choice: paint a picture of roses for Mother's Day, or play Magic School Bus in the computer. I chose to play Magic School Bus on the computer. Well, apparently that was the wrong choice, because my gifted teacher told my mother. My mother proceeded to chew her out, reasoning that I was a small child. Of course I'm going to want to play a video game. Some kid threw a rock at my son's head and cut his really bad. Said kid was suspended for 3 days and so was my son. My son, who was walking by and got hit with a rock and bleed so badly it soaked his shirt and pants, was suspended because, zero tolerance. Our supervisor has a mild fruit allergy, so no student should be allowed to bring fruit to school anymore. Online learning for the past few months. Return to physical school was just last week. My son is in pre-K and didn't do online lessons. So he's been in class 5 days for like 3 hours a day. They have no school next week for progress reporting and parent conferences. Not a parent, but it happened to me. My religious education teacher would grade us based on drawings we did. Even the slightest effort would get you the highest grade possible. I was the only kid getting lower grades. I asked why and she told me that's because my drawings were too good and wanted me to draw something in front of her to prove that I was the person who made them. Participants are my mom and brother. Brother is in high school and they are doing health class during PE. Coach decides showing a Charles Manson documentary was proper curriculum. First half one day, brother comes home and mentions it to my mom. My mom lit into the principal apparently. Small town and they were friends, but she let him have it. The next day, no second half of Charles Manson documentary. They fucking changed math. My mom pulled me out of a private Baptist school right before I was going to middle school. Her friend would have been my 6th grade teacher. That woman was cheating on her husband, not with anybody at the school. The principal found out somehow and sent a letter home with the kids to hand to their parents. The letter went into details about the affair. Names of everybody involved and how because of this, they were going to fire the teacher. My mom put me in public school after that. A few years after I graduated from high school there was a scandal involving 2 students and their families. The scandal. The 2 students went to a gun range with their families and took pictures at said range. School found out and suspended them for weapon possession, as if it was the underage kids that owned the guns and not the parents. Absolute morons, that school district. My daughter's teacher subtracted marks from her speech for not making eye contact with the audience. She is autistic and has an IEP for accommodations for her autism. The superintendent is making $500,000 per year working less than 20 per hours a week. We also have a truancy officer making over $250,000 per year to drive around in his Lexus. Then they raise my school taxes every year. I currently pay over $8,600 per year just in school taxes for a subpar education that compelled us to move our kid to private school. Because the public school isn't teaching math or science. And because we have 6th graders with a 3rd grade reading level. My son came home with a wet face mask on. I asked why it was wet. He dropped it in the toilet. Teachers knew. Didn't call to let us know to come replace or give him a loaner. Nope. Wet toilet face mask the rest of the day. He's 5. We told him never allow that again. Assured him we would come to replace. Not me, but my dad ripped my history teacher a new one because I got in trouble for not doing my homework in 10 female grade due to one of my best friends trying to kill herself the night before. The teacher humiliated me to the point of almost tears in front of the class. I got up and walked out because I had enough. Called my dad, and he called the teacher during lunch break yelling at him the whole time. 2 years before this, that same teacher thought it'd be fun to bully my older brother and had the same outcome, plus an in-person meeting with both of my parents and the superintendent. Not a parent, but this is bull. I got sick and threw up blood. Instead of being sent home sick, I was dragged back to the classroom and told to clean up my mess. And I was suspended for kicking a trash can. Not the parent, but do remember a time. I was quite a trouble kid, just got my work done fast and wanted to talk to everyone. Mom came for an principal's meeting. We sit down and her first words were, "If you could go ahead and put him on Ritalin it would make it easier on us." Switched schools next day. I was expelled for being habitually disruptive in a school made for kids with ADD and ADHD. All my parents could say. My school tried to make me do an after-school club once a week. Did it once, walked home in the rain and had tons of bruises. Didn't have to do it again for the rest of the year after I told my mom. Called me up and ripped into me when my then 6-year-old child repeated a joke told to him by his grandfather. How do you make holy water? You boil the hell out of it. So got to be lectured on how inappropriate it was. Needless to say, I told the principal how inappropriate it was for her to be constantly calling and basically picking on my kids for being kids. This was 15 years ago and still pisses me off.